Another equation we wanted to solve right here. This is a quadratic equation. It's got an x squared and an x and a constant term. When you have an equation of this form, you can use the quadratic formula. Now the quadratic formula says that ax squared plus bx plus c is 0 if and only if x takes one of the values, negative b, plus or minus the square root of the quantity b squared minus 4ac, all that divided by 2a. In this case, this is of this form. A is the number in front of x squared, so a is 7. B is a number in front of x, so that b is 6. C is whatever you've got here without an x on it, and that's 7. So that we have a equals 7, b equals 6, c equals 7. If we plug those numbers in, b is 6. Negative b is negative 6. B squared would be 6 squared. Then we're done with b. Now, a and c both happen to be 7. So 4ac would be 4 times 7 times 7. 4 times 7 times 7. And 2a, that would be 2 times 7. So we have negative 6 plus, or, well, I'm not going to read it to you. We have this. And we can do the arithmetic and simplify this. 6 squared is 36. 7 times 7 is 49. 4 times that is 196. 4 times 50 is 200. Take away 4, you get 196. Think about that. So we have 36 minus 196, and that's pretty easy. That's 160, but it's of course negative 160, and that gives us a little bit of a complication here. But when we simplify the expression here, and 2 times 7 of course is 14, we end up with negative 6 plus or minus the square root of negative 160 divided by 14. Now there are things we can do with 160. It's actually 16 times 10, and we could break it out like that, but we're not going to worry about that right now. We'll worry about it later. The bigger thing to worry about is the fact we have a negative here. Now the square root of a number is the number which you multiply by itself to get that number. So the square root of negative 160 is some number multiplied which multiplied by itself gives you 160, negative 160, but when you multiply a number by itself, the number is either positive, in which case the number times itself is positive, or it's negative, in which case the product is still positive. The product can't be negative, so you can't have a real number whose square is negative 160. So the square root of negative 160 is not a real number. But it turns out that it's equal to the square root of 160 times the square root of negative 1. Because 160 times negative 1 gives you negative 160, and this actually works, okay? So that is square root of 160. That's approximately equal to 12.7, I claimed, somewhere around there. And then this square root of negative 1, it's not a real number, so we call it I for an imaginary number, for the basic imaginary number. This is something that you will have seen in the prerequisite courses. You might not totally remember it, but for this reason, the square root of negative 160 can be approximately written as 12.7 times I. So we have negative 6 plus or minus 12.7 I divided by 14. Now there's more we would do with this, but right now I'm happy if you just know the quadratic formula and know that you can apply it and know how to plug the numbers in and at least get it down to this form.